We'll send Fetterman.
Fetterman?
All day, every day. I'll join too.
Chances are we might have matching outfits.
Fetterman's married. But Jesse likes Governor Newsom, doesn't he?
Well, guys, they're besties. Maybe they're going to do a timer show together.
I'd rather have Brett
there you go. Okay, I'll be there. Thanks, Shannon. Good evening. I'm Brett Baer. Breaking tonight, the man behind the art of the deal says no deal. President Trump says he will accept only what he calls an unconditional surrender from Iran. This afternoon, the president told me in a phone conversation that higher gas prices are a short blip. He believes they will go down quickly once the war starts coming to an end. Meantime, Israeli warplanes bombed Tehran and Beirut as Iran launched additional retaliatory strikes on this, the 7th day of the conflict. Israel also released video of airstrikes that obliterated the former Ayatollah's underground bunker. Washington Post reporting Russia is helping Iran with its targeting of American forces in the region. We have Fox team coverage. Jillian Turner at the State Department updates the evacuation of Americans from the Middle East. Jennifer Griffin has additional details on the Russia-Iran connection, but we begin with correspondent Nate Foy in Tel Aviv with the latest tonight. Good evening, Nate.
Hey, Brett, good evening. In the first week of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. forces have struck 3,000 Iranian positions, many of them ballistic missile sites. But tonight, Iran is proving they still have missiles to fire. Just about 15 minutes ago here in Tel Aviv, we heard the sirens go off for the 6th time today. We saw about a dozen interceptor missiles get fired off right over my shoulder. So the war rages on both ways. Israel remains on the offensive. The air defense remains strong, but they are inflicting punishing blows in Iran and also in Lebanon. They've hit 500 Hezbollah military sites, including several command centers. Today in Tehran, Israel destroyed an underground bunker built for and often used by Iran's former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. A senior Israeli official tells Fox Khamenei didn't use the bunker the morning of his death because he didn't think the U.S. or Israel would kill him. We're learning more about the cluster munition that Iran fired at central Israel overnight. They're called dual-purpose improved conventional munitions, or DPICMs. They're incredibly difficult to intercept, and it takes time to clear the munitions. The U.S. gave Ukraine this same weapon back in 2023. So far, U.S. forces have hit Iranian control centers, air defense systems, and communication infrastructure. Many of those targets are in Iran's capital, where the residents of Tehran describe explosions nearly all day long. Tonight, the U.S. military base near Baghdad was hit by Iranian drones, or at least targeted by Iranian drones, as Iran has now targeted 12 countries across the region, including civilian infrastructure, as the U.S. military tonight says the targeting of innocent civilians will not go unanswered. Brett?
Nate Foy in Tel Aviv. Nate, thanks. The U.S. is preparing to use new weaponry in its fight against Iran. Meanwhile, an old foe is reportedly helping Iran in its effort to strike back against the U.S. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin has that part of the story tonight. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Brett. Fox News has confirmed that Russia is quietly providing intelligence to Iran to help with precise targeting, as first reported by the Washington Post. Russia's goal: to prolong the conflict and drain valuable U.S. munitions, much like the U.S. has done by providing targeting intelligence to Ukraine after Russia's invasion. The U.S. military has had its sensitive radar installations across the Gulf targeted and hit during the past week. Videos show a satellite communications hub in Bahrain and Qatar taking direct hits. Iran's Shahed drones are a problem. The U.S. military is targeting them with inexpensive American $10,000 weapons, but some are getting through. American Lucas one-way attack drones that the U.S. military reverse-engineered from Iranian-Russian drones found on the battlefield in Ukraine are now hitting fixed targets in Iran.
This was an original Iranian drone design. We captured it, pulled the guts out, sent it back to America, put a little Made America on it, brought it back here, and we're shooting it at the Iranians.
A new laser-based technology is being raced to the battlefield for close-in support, a last resort if all other layers of defense fail. 2 U.S. destroyers are equipped with the Odin laser, which blinds drone sensors, causing them to crash. It has not yet been employed. New directed energy microwave anti-drone technology is also being developed.
It goes right into the skin of the drone, affects the computer boards, and shuts down the computer from working.
The U.S. took out this Iranian drone carrier roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier. Meanwhile, satellite imagery and verified videos show the girls' elementary school hit in Manab, Iran on Saturday was likely hit by U.S. precision munitions, along with 6 buildings at the neighboring Iranian naval base. Satellite images from 2013 showed the school inside the IRGC naval base perimeter, but images from 3 years later show it outside the base. There were scores of children in their classrooms at the time of the strike, according to the survivors, and satellite photos appear to show rows of fresh graves. Secretary Pete Hegseth was asked about the incident this week.
We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look at investigating that.
U.S. B-1 bombers arrived today at Fairford Base in the UK, cutting in half their flying time from the U.S. to Iran. The UK Defense Ministry announced the HMS Dragon, the Royal Navy's air defense destroyer, has been ordered to the eastern Mediterranean, but has not yet left its port in England. Brad?
Okay, Jen, thank you. Another State Department chartered evacuation flight is back home tonight. Private groups are also helping in that effort. Tonight we hear from one of the Americans who was able to get out of the region. Senior foreign policy correspondent Jillian Turner has the latest tonight from the State Department.
Earlier today, the second State Department charter flight from the Mideast landed stateside. American evacuees boarded a Patriots team plane for the journey. The State Department paid for that flight, and in a break with President, Secretary Marco Rubio is waiving all fees for American evacuees. The first official charter flight from the region returned hundreds of Americans to U.S. soil Thursday.
Then it did hit me. I was like, I just got out of a war zone.
Tommy Royals of Potomac, Maryland is one of 24,000 Americans who have fled the Mideast this week and managed to get safely home.
And one of the staffers working there actually did say, yes, your flight is suspended for the time being. And basically all our phones went off with these alarms, and we heard explosions and stuff.
Private rescue organizations have now begun stepping in to help Americans as well.
This administration is working tirelessly to get our individuals, our American citizens, home. But there's a gap, and there's a lack of ability to move as fast as a civilian organization.
Commercial flight availability across the region came to a standstill for days, but is now beginning to reopen. The State Department today says Secretary Rubio's 24/7 task force has helped nearly 13,000 Americans. Good news for people like Tommy Royal's classmate, Christian.
But as the days went on, it just kind of seemed like the attacks and the devastation was ramping up, not down. So I was like, oh man, we might be here for weeks.
President Trump today lauded Secretary Rubio's work so far. He said to get Americans out of the region, out of harm's way. Rubio will be with the president tomorrow for the, it's called the Shield of the Americas Summit, the inaugural meeting tomorrow in Doral, Florida. Kristi Noem, the former DHS secretary, Brett, is now at the helm of that organization. Brett?
Yeah, Jillian, talking about this hemisphere, President Trump has a prediction about Cuba tonight.
That's right, Brett. Developing now, President Trump telling Fox News that he believes Cuba, the Cuban regime, is going to fall, quote, sometime soon. He also says there are diplomatic talks ongoing now and that they are going to continue, spearheaded by Secretary of State Marco Rubio over the coming days and weeks. We will obviously be following that very closely. Brett?
Okay, Jillian Turner, live at the State Department. Jillian, thank you. As we told you at the top of the show, President Trump is demanding an unconditional surrender from Iran. He says the Islamic Republic's new leader must be great and acceptable, in his words. After that, the U.S. and its allies will help rebuild Iran. A few hours ago, as I mentioned, the president spoke to some of the people who are supplying the weapons the U.S. is using against Iran. Senior White House correspondent Peter Ducey reports tonight from the North Lawn.
Young people are being signed, 17-year-old quarterbacks, for $12 million, $13 million, $14 million.
Just before a college sports roundtable, the president met with defense contractors, including Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing.
The purpose of it is to talk about the president's aggressive and fierce support for rapidly increasing the ability of U.S. manufacturers to produce American-made weapons, which we know are the best in the world.
Responding to reports that Russia is helping Iran target American troops, a White House spokeswoman says Operation Epic Fury is meeting or surpassing all of its goals, and the United States will continue to dominate But alarm bells are going off about how long gas prices will remain elevated.
I think it's of order weeks. I would say in the worst case, but it's weeks, not months.
Politico reports Energy Secretary Chris Wright and other advisors focused on energy policy, including a council led by Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, are getting screamed at to find some good news on bringing down prices. Secretary Burgum has one idea.
The Venezuelan partnership is going to be one of the ways that price goes down at the pump in America.
Operation Epic Fury will continue, President Trump writes on Truth Social, until the Iranians offer their, quote, unconditional surrender.
And just a few minutes ago, we were in the East Room. The president was hosting this NCAA event, and he took a couple questions. I asked him about this report that the Russians are, and you'll excuse me, I just ran out here. I asked him about this report that the Russians are helping the Iranians target Americans. And the president, who wanted to stay on topic, said he thought that was a stupid question. Right?
Nice job, jogging to the camera. I know how that goes.
It was more of a
Live
sprint.
in the North Lawn.
Jogging,
Yeah, sprint.
I'd have my
Full
breath.
on.
It was a sprint.
Full-on sprint, thank you. Please join Peter for the Sunday briefing. His guests will include retired General former CIA Director David Petraeus, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, and Republican Senate Armed Services Committee member Mike Rounds. Up next, a verdict in the trial of a Pakistani man accused in an alleged plot to kill President Trump. We'll take you there live. Then, Fox News gets exclusive access as federal agents target members of a violent street gang in Los Angeles.
Fight for a secure border.
Pakistani man has been convicted in connection with a plot to kill President Trump. Prosecutors said the scheme was backed by the Iranian government. Correspondent Alexis McAdams is outside federal court in Brooklyn tonight with the latest. Good evening, Alexis.
Brett, good evening. They were only in court for a matter of days here for this federal trial, and it took 2 hours to find Steve Merchant guilty here in this federal case in Brooklyn, New York, after prosecutors say he came all the way here from Pakistan with a plan to kill President Trump at a campaign rally. And he says that plan was backed by the Iranian regime. Take a look here on your screen. This is who we're talking about. This is 47-year-old right here who's been in court now for a matter of days after prosecutors say he traveled here with that assassination plot in mind. He's facing federal terrorism charges he was hit with, which could carry a life sentence. We'll find about that in a few days. Merchant testified in his own federal trial explaining that Iranian leadership, Brett, wanted President Trump dead, so they sent him to the U.S. to hire some criminals that could assassinate the president at a campaign rally. Merchant says Iranian leaders gave him a plan back in 2024. They showed this sketch in court, Brett. It kind of looks like a kid drew it, but it's a mark on the spot where the president would have been standing at a rally, and the best spots to also fire at that stage, hoping it would be from an elevated position. So Merchant was then arrested 1 day before Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania. He later told the feds he believed Iran could have been behind that Butler attack because it was so eerily similar to the plan and the sketch that they gave him. Merchant says Iran has been trying to get revenge since 2020, since the U.S. took out their top military leader, Qasem Soleimani, and the feds say the threats just continue here on the homeland as the United States just bombed Iran and took out its Ayatollah. Prosecutors say Merchant also paid thousands of dollars to 2 guys he thought were hitmen, but they turned out to be FBI agents, and he also told his entire plan to someone he thought was a friend who really was an FBI informant. So I think that's why, Brett, back out here live, it only took 2 hours to find him guilty. Tonight, Merchant remains behind bars, and we know a sentencing date has not been set just yet. Brett.
Alexis McAdams outside federal court in Brooklyn. Alexis, thanks. American employers unexpectedly cut 92,000 jobs last month. Economists had expected 60,000 new jobs in February. The unemployment rate increased to 4.4%. Meantime, oil shot to its highest price since 2023. That all sent stocks down. The Dow lost 453. The S&P 500 fell 91. The Nasdaq sank 361. For the week, the worst numbers since last October. The The Dow dropped 3 percentage points. The S&P 500 lost 2. The Nasdaq fell 1.25. Early voting is underway tonight in Virginia on a proposed constitutional amendment to the Commonwealth to redraw the Commonwealth's congressional voting map, which could potentially shift 4 Republican-held seats to Democrats. The Virginia Supreme Court, however, ruled this week that voting on the ballot measure can proceed. The court has not ruled on whether the mid-decade redistricting amendment and referendum are legal yet, regardless of whether it passes. Embattled Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez says he is ending his re-election campaign. This comes after he admitted an affair with a former staff member who later died by suicide. Gonzalez was headed for a May runoff against gun manufacturer Brandon Herrera after failing to win a majority in this week's primary. He says he will finish out his term in Congress. Tonight we take you on patrol with federal agents as they arrest multiple members of a violent street gang in Los Angeles. Fox was given exclusive access to this raid. Correspondent Matt Finn is our guide tonight.
Law enforcement busting 12 alleged members of the transnational 18th Street gang, including top brass, in a sting called Operation Dead Horse. Fox exclusively embedded with the FBI as agents raided one of the suspected stash houses early Thursday morning. The DOJ says the 18th Street gang has 100,000 members and is one of the largest and most violent gangs in the Western Hemisphere.
It's not just LA, and in fact, it's a transnational gang, so they have control all over, even outside of this country.
LAPD tells Fox the gang imports narcotics like fentanyl from the Mexican Sinaloa cartel at a discount, then marks up the price and sells lethal drugs all over the world. The feds say the gang is operated by Mexican mafia bosses inside prisons who order members on the street.
They need people at the outside to do their work, their dirty work, and those are the people that we went after today.
One of the alleged drug trafficking bosses arrested is a 60-year-old woman busted with meth, fentanyl, and guns. Investigators say the 18th Street gang turned LA's historic MacArthur Park into an open-air drug market. Street vendors risk being murdered if they don't pay dues, and homeless encampments are used to store drugs. The indictment reads the gang threatened one business: if you don't cooperate with us, that's it, you're done.
And this was a years-long investigation between LAPD and the feds. The Justice Department says it's going after cases like this because President Trump instructed them to target open-air drug markets and transnational gangs. Brett.
Matt, thank you. Up next, we learn
Thank you,
additional
President
details
Trump.
about Iran's attacks on its Gulf neighbors and U.S. facilities in the region. We'll have a live report from Dubai. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 5 in New York, where Mayor Zohran Mamdani is not directly commenting on an emergent controversy concerning his wife's social media activity. Jewish Insider reports Rama Dawaji liked multiple Instagram posts glorifying the October 7th, 2023 terror attack in Israel. When asked about it today, the mayor said his wife is a private person who has had no formal position on his campaign or in his city hall. Fox 23 in Tulsa, where forecasters expect strong storms to spread across much of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. A powerful storm yesterday in Oklahoma is being investigated as a possible tornado. Video shows lightning and a large storm cloud near the ground west of Fairview in Major County, Oklahoma. At least 2 people were killed there. And this is a live look at Los Angeles from Fox 11, our affiliate out there. One of the big stories there tonight, the big move today ahead of the National Hockey League trade deadline finds Washington sending franchise icon defenseman John Carlson to Anaheim for a first-round pick in 2026 or 2027, along with a third-round pick in 2027. Full disclosure, I know John well. I guess I'll have to become a Ducks fan, too. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back. we're discussing Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez. That was the incorrect person. It was Adrian Gonzalez you saw, the former Uvalde police officer who was on trial. We apologize for that error. Breaking tonight, the Saudi Defense Ministry says it has intercepted 4 drones launched toward the Sheba oil field. This comes as Iran is maintaining its retaliatory attacks against U.S. and Israeli targets, as well as some of its Gulf neighbors. Meanwhile, the UAE is freezing Iranian assets, and more American weaponry is moving into the area. Correspondent Lucas Tomlinson is live tonight from Dubai. Good evening, Lucas.
Good evening, Brett. A third U.S. Navy aircraft carrier strike group is getting ready to cross the Atlantic and join the war against Iran. The U.S. says George H.W. Bush has completed her workups just off the coast of Cape Hatteras and is expected to deploy soon. She's expected to head to the eastern Mediterranean after the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford crossed the Suez Canal on Thursday and is now in the Red Sea. In addition to dozens of strike fighters aboard the carrier, the guided missile destroyers in the strike group will also be available to hit targets potentially in Yemen, should there be any signs of Houthi rebels launching attacks on Israel or international shipping. Now, in the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil flows each year, transits are now down 94% since the start of the war. As an incentive to get traffic moving again, the Trump administration announced today a $20 billion reinsurance program, and Energy Secretary Chris Wright says the U.S. Navy will begin escorting vessels through the strait when it is safe to do so.
First, we got to get their ability to cause trouble way down. And then as soon as it's reasonable to do it, we'll escort ships through the straits and get the energy moving again.
While Iranian ballistic missile strikes are down 90% and drone attacks 83%, attacks continue here against the UAE. 9 more ballistic missiles and over 100 drones launched overnight, all except 3 drones shot down. Since the start of the war on Saturday, the UAE has been attacked the most by Iran, with over 1,000 drones and missiles fired at the country. More than 90% have been successfully shot down. And officials have confirmed that the United Arab Emirates has frozen all Iranian assets here in the Gulf state. Brett.
Lucas Thompson, live in Dubai. Lucas, thanks.
Our overall political objective is regime change, and you do that in 2 ways. Either you find someone from within to rise up, or you create an opposition force that can take over. And there's no more effective fighters in the Middle East than the Kurds.
The Kurds in Iran and also neighboring Iraq are the very few population that are armed and also trained.
The Kurds are a very capable fighting force. They're the individuals you want on your side.
As the Iran conflict expands, there's reporting tonight that thousands of Iranian Kurds are preparing for a potential military operation in Iran with U.S. backing. That's the Associated Press tonight. The Kurds are among the largest stateless ethnic group in the world, with roughly 30 million living as minorities in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. The Kurds represent about 10% of the Iranian population. They make up about 15% of the population in Iraq. The groups in Iraqi Kurdistan have a long history of working with the U.S. during both the Iraq War and the battle against ISIS. Joining us now is Bafel Talabani, president of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, the PUK. Mr. Talabani, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's first start big picture and paint the picture from where you sit of what you see with this war in Iran and what you think the implications are of it as it exists now.
We saw the hostilities start surprisingly, and it seems to be a massive escalation across all fronts. Kurdistan has come under attack from several different angles, and I'm not seeing any sign of a slowdown. If anything, I'm seeing an escalation.
So the U.S. is working on taking out missile sites and drone factories and that sort of thing, but as far as groups on the ground fighting the Iranians, there's reporting that thousands of Iranian Kurds are preparing for this operation. Where does that stand?
There are a lot of Iranian Kurds that deserve dignity, and they deserve perhaps better treatment But as for any actual preparation and armed Kurds inside Iran, there are elements, and there's lots of political organization. But most of the most effective fighting forces are actually outside of Iran. They're on the borders here.
You had a conversation with President Trump. What was that like?
He was very charming. He was very kind. I could feel the emotion in his voice. He said that the Kurds were great fighters. My understanding is that the protection of the people in Iraq is paramount. He was very grateful for all the years that we have served and I have spent with your special forces.
You also talked to the Iranian foreign minister.
Yes.
What is their take on things from your call? Do you believe that regime change is possible the way it's heading right now?
The foreign minister, His Excellency, expressed great disappointment, if I'm honest with you. He indicated that as far as they were concerned, the talks were going well. He implied that a technical group was supposed to sit together in the upcoming days to discuss technical matters. He indicated that this wasn't a war that they were looking forward to, but it was a war they would have to fight. It's definitely existential to them. I got the impression that they were open to some form of peaceful negotiation, which realistically is the only real solution to this issue. Regime change at the moment doesn't look on the cards from what I see. We've seen no uprisings anywhere, we've seen nothing of that. But it's early days. I expect this operation to be long and very difficult.
You think there are difficult days ahead. The president is suggesting that he would only accept unconditional surrender, in his words, to a reporter. So you don't see that right now, that this is on the cusp of happening?
I don't, sir. No, I don't see that right now. I think that the regime has been planning for this for 45 years, and you can expect a fierce resistance. The definition of regime change is important. What is the definition of regime change? And is there an off-ramp? Because some could argue that most mission parameters have been achieved. So is there an off-ramp where now perhaps we can try to resolve this diplomatically?
Yeah, I think that from the administration, at least listening to them, taking out the ballistic missile capability, making sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, was the original objective going in.
Exactly.
The Israelis clearly are more wanting specific regime change to get a different leader in place that the U.S. and Israel can work with.
I understand that. And I think that, Mr. Baer, the conditions, I keep hearing the comparisons to 2003. I think the conditions are very different to 2003. In 2003, there was legitimate, well-known, respected opposition to Saddam among the Shiites, among the Kurds. And don't really see that in Iran now. There isn't a standard, a symbol for people to follow, and that will make it very difficult. Troops on the ground with a country the size of Western Europe, I'm not sure if that's feasible either, but there are many options, and I think the US administration is wise enough to modify their position as the battle changes and as the battlefield changes.
Just to be clear, so there's no armed cross-border operation happening now from your territory in Iraq involving Iranian Kurds into Iran?
Not that I see, and you could argue that that's actually a detriment. The Iranians, like everybody else, are very a nationalistic person, and I believe that if they fear that Kurds coming in from elsewhere will cause a split or a splintering of their country, this may actually unify the people and against this separatist movement. Then you have the complications of Turkey. Turkey will have legitimate concerns of this happening. You will have Turkish intervention against the Kurdish troops. At the same time, there is a problem with the Azeris. I think it's a very complicated scenario, and perhaps Kurds being tip of the spear is not the way to go.
Yeah. Well, there are many minorities, you're right, in Iran, and it's very complex as far as how it comes together. If you were to look into a crystal ball, how do you think this ends?
I think that Kurdistan needs to be a bridge. not a battlefield. And the Kurds are uniquely positioned as being your great allies, and a partner and a neighbor of Iran. I think we're uniquely positioned to play a role in de-escalation when the time is appropriate, like my late father used to play that role. But what I see now, from what I'm seeing, is a weakened Iranian system, but the institutions, though very different to ours, are institutions and they remain solid. I think that once military objectives are achieved, I dare say that it will be the time for diplomacy. And at that time, we stand ready, as always, to stand with our friends and allies to try to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to this region that truly has suffered from far too many wars and far too many conflicts.
Dealing with the drone threat from Iran, because that's what we're seeing most in some of these Gulf countries.
Yes.
Are you worried about attacks and how to defend against those drone attacks that come in swarms?
Not to sound flippant, sir, it's not our first rodeo, and we have absolutely no defense against any drones. So I think the less time spent worrying about it, the better.
Yeah, I got you. And the U.S. is attempting to deal with all of those threats together. It's very interesting to hear your perspective. If you were to say the thing you're most worried about, what is it?
The humanitarian crisis. I think the people of the Middle East have suffered enough, and I urge all sides to try to look at a less bloody way to resolve our issues. I understand that, and I genuinely believe that Mr. Trump in his heart wants peace. And I understand the theory of peace through strength. And I also think that when the day comes to acknowledge victory, there will be grace in that victory, and we may be able to have dialogue, and we may be able to resolve this issue through the only way that will make a long-lasting peace, and that's dialogue, stability, peace.
Well, fascinating to talk to you from the region. Bafil Talabani, the head of the PUK. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Up next, the Friday lightning round. But before we go to break, the funeral for the late civil rights icon Jesse Jackson held today in Chicago. Former Presidents Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden were all in attendance.
Jesse was dedicated with every fiber in his being to redeeming the soul of America.
He made you believe that if we came together, we could make the world work better.
We remember him not for what he accumulated, but for what he gave.
Reverend Jesse Jackson died February 17th at the age of 84.
I voted for him in a primary years ago for president.
Real fair weather friend here. They need the relationships with the Gulf Arabs way more than they need Iran.
U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz, it's coming after a Washington Post story that Russia is providing intelligence to the Iranians to target U.S. forces. The president putting out a Truth Social saying there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that, and the selection of a great and acceptable leaders, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction. Let's bring in our panel, Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams, Fox News contributor Molly Hemingway, and Matthew Continetti, scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, Wall Street Journal opinion columnist. Matthew, unconditional surrender and how the president's phrasing this operation so far.
Yeah, unconditional surrender, I think, Brett, is President Trump's way of saying he will determine when the conflict ends. He's spoken about going for victory. He said that the current choice for the successor to the Supreme Leader is unacceptable. He will be the commander-in-chief who determines when the conflict ends and what new leadership exists in Iran.
You just saw that interview with the head of the PUK. Here's a clip where I ask about that. Take a listen. The president is suggesting that he would only accept unconditional surrender, in his words, to a reporter. So you don't see that right now, that this is on the cusp of happening?
I don't, sir. No, I don't see that right now. You can expect a fierce resistance. It's early days. I expect this operation to be long.
Molly, what'd you make of all that?
Well, I agree with Matt that President Trump, when he's talking about unconditional surrender, he kind of came out here, his people came out and said he just means by that he'll decide when the war is over. There have only been 2 times in human history where unconditional surrender has really worked out in a successful way, with the Axis and Allied conflict, or with Rome and Carthage. So it seems that Trump was being, just letting people know how serious it is. It is also true that he has support from the Republican Party right now because they believe that he fights wars differently than George W. Bush and others. But the American people would like President Trump to focus on those things that he was elected to do, saving the American country, which they think has very limited time for that to work out.
Yeah, Juan.
Well, when you talk about unconditional surrender, I mean, that to me suggests that you're going to have boots on the ground. I just heard Molly refer to unconditional surrender. You think about Japan, Germany, even, what happened in Iraq. And, we had boots on the ground. And what we just heard from the leader of the PUK was there are not going to be Kurdish boots on the ground. It was an interesting strategic possibility to have someone else fight for the U.S., but Americans right now, we don't know how long this thing is going to go on. We don't know how many lives will be lost. We don't know who will lead Iraq. What we do know is this war is right now costing us more than $1 billion a day. I mean, to me, that's shocking. $1 billion a day. We know stocks are up. We know stocks are down. Oil prices are up. And we know the job market is weak. So this is just not a good moment, and we just hope that there is some strategic vision at play somewhere.
Matthew.
Well, Juan focused on the costs of the war. I would say those costs are acceptable when you consider the gains so far in the war. Trump and our Israeli allies have decapitated the Iranian leadership. They are destroying its war machine. The capacity of the Iranians to retaliate, we've seen on this show, has rapidly vanished. And now they're turning toward the apparatus of oppression that has kept the Iranian people suppressed. Once that apparatus is destroyed, it will be the Iranians who have the moment to take up and force a change in their country for the better.
I'll let that interview breathe a little bit. Let's do winners and losers here on the lightning round. Molly, you first. Winner, then loser.
My winner is Lou Holtz, who died this week at the age of 89. Going to his heavenly home and having this wonderful life that he had, blessing so many people. My loser is McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczewski, who had that viral video where he seemed to struggle eating some of his own fast food chain's product, and everyone's been dunking on him.
All right, Juan, winner and loser.
I think the winner this week, it's a Texas two-step for you. James Tallarico, the state rep, easily won the Democratic primary to run for U.S. Senate. It's the best hope the Democrats have had since Lloyd Benson back in the 90s. And the loser, I don't think there's any question, Representative Tony Gonzalez, also a Texan. He ends his re-election bid, after entering a runoff. He was going to have to face a runoff. He has an ethics probe. Just not a good week.
Matthew, winner or loser?
My winner is Mark Teixeira, the baseball great, won his primary to represent Texas in the House of Representatives and assures Republican dominance in the congressional baseball game for decades to come. I'm very excited. And my loser is any pitcher who faces Shohei Ohtani, who started the World Baseball Classic with a grand slam home run last night. He is going to be a threat to Team USA.
Yeah. That's true. All right, panel, I'll make it up more time next time. Thanks. Up next, notable quotables.
I'm Elmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived.
Well, you know that sound. That means it's Friday. Time for notable quotables.
Breaking news from the Middle East. Israel has launched preemptive airstrikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
The United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury.
It is the second time in 8 months that the U.S. has used military force against Iran.
Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics.
We will never forget their legacy or their sacrifice.
Today's hearing is about a failure of leadership. Plain and simple.
I've taken accountability for this. I'm not going to run again. I need to spend the time fixing this.
Thank God you're not Vice President of the United States.
You have spent
$220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently.
Sir, the president tasked me with getting the message out to the country and to other countries.
Her version of the truth and the president's version of the truth have decided to be different.
I wish the secretary well on being the shield of Americas, which is clearly something that the president got out of the last Avengers movie.
A little kid from West Oklahoma gets to serve in the president's cabinet. That's pretty neat.
Today we're thrilled to host Inter Miami. These are good-looking people. Marco, I don't like good-looking men. You don't feel so good about yourself standing up here.
1 week covering Washington. Monday on Special Report, complete coverage of the Iran conflict from all over the world. Please join Shannon Breen for Fox News Sunday. Her guests include Energy Secretary Chris Wright, Senators John Kennedy of the Appropriations Committee, and Mark Warner of the Intelligence Committee. Don't forget to skip your clocks ahead an hour this Sunday, daylight savings time. Remember, if you can't catch us live, set your DVR.
Okay.
In America's future. And this is the Larry Otis Show.
Hello, Franklin Graham. And Jesus said, come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. And maybe you've been burdened by the sins of your life and the mistakes, and you just would love to have rest for your soul. Well, I want you to know that God loves you. He made you. He created you. And he sent his son, Jesus Christ, from heaven to this earth to take your sins. That's right. He took your sins to the cross. He died and shed his blood on a cross. And it was buried. But on the third day, God raised him to life. And if we are willing to repent, turn from our sins, tell God that we're sorry, and by faith, believe on Jesus Christ, and invite him to come into our hearts, to take control of our life, God will forgive us and cleanse us. And you can have a new life, a new beginning, starting today, right now. Invite him to come into your heart. God bless you.
As an emergency
Amen.
physician, I know parasitic infections are more common than previously believed.
Able to communicate? You're in public office. It's ridiculous. Well, it's okay. I'm being unfair because Gavin can handle the really tough questions.
Do you have a Zoolander problem?
No, I Jesus.
Are you just ridiculously good looking, as folks said?
Hardly.
No, seriously, what do you do about that?
You don't do anything about it.
Are you too good looking? And really, this is the best they've got. Now, he has some talent, no doubt about it. But come on. Here to discuss is Doug Shum, Democratic strategist, pollster, and Kaylee McGee-White, Fox News contributor and Steamboat Institute fellow. Doug, let's start with you. Now, Gavin Newsom, said this thing where he has to, when he reads, he has to write down what he reads, so he can't do a regular speech. And he just said he struggles to communicate. And this is, I think, right, kind of the best that they have for 2028. What about this? Aren't you supposed to get better as campaigns go along?
Well, he's the front runner in at least some polls. Kamala Harris is arguably less talented than him, and Angela Cortez is third or fourth in the polls, and she's a 3 or 4 term Congress member who'd been a waiter bartender. So we don't have a deep bench. Laura, we also don't have a message or a strategy. Our only strategy is anti-Trump.
Well, Kaylee, the same question to you. I mean, you're asked a simple question. What do you want to accomplish, basically? What do you want to be known for? And he said, well, I don't have the Great Society. Or, no one's saying you have the Great Society, but it has to be more than I stand up for ideals or I fight injustice. You're not Superman.
Right. The problem is he can't run on his record because his record is disastrous, and he can't own the policies that he actually does support because the voters have already rejected those policies. And look, I'm a little bit wary of Gavin Newsom because I do think that he's a political chameleon. He doesn't want to take on a brand. He doesn't want to attach himself to a certain set of ideas because he wants to be able to change and shift along with public opinion. And I gotta say, it's at least a little bit more honest because if you read in between the lines here, what he's admitting is that he's really just in it for the power. And guess what? All Democrats are the exact same. And I would say he's being a little bit more honest than everyone else on the left side of the aisle who's pretending to be a moderate right now just to drop that charade 2 minutes into actually taking power. So I think voters should be wary of Gavin Newsom, but also see this admission for what it is.
Well, Doug, and if you're taking a guest to the State of the Union, that's always fun to do, make sure he or she is not a criminal. Congressman Seth Moulton didn't get that memo. Police say that he brought in an illegal alien who is allegedly connected to sexual assault cases involving minors. Doug, what a nightmare scenario this is, making the Republicans' point that if you're here illegally, you have to leave, apply to come back, self-deport. Sure. But there are a lot of criminals here, even if they didn't have records.
Laura, my party is clearest message on immigration is defund ICE. We have candidates in the primaries, Talarico in Texas, embarrassing postings have come up already that the Republicans are using. Graham Plattner in Maine, the leader there, embarrassing issues with his body art and articulation. So we have a divided party between the left and the so-called center, and we don't have a message or strategy, as I said. I think we're in trouble,
Yeah, other than hating Trump. Totally hating Trump.
Right.
That's it.
It's all anti-Trump and affordability.
Yeah, exactly. Doug, Kaylee, thank you so much. And coming out, when they go low, well, Obama uses a funeral to attack Trump. That's pretty low.
You love your land, and you have plans for it.